Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're getting back into Savage Avengers, because I'm noticing that you guys, like myself, are also curious to see where this goes. And from reading the comments on the last video, I could tell that some of you guys were just fans of the previous series, which is why you picked up this one, or some of you just wanted to follow Flash and Weapon H, and others were just happy to see more of Cloak and Dagger. But overall, there's a lot of things that have been thrown in here that have grabbed my attention as well, especially with us getting a number of teases at this point to a bunch of these guys either getting an upgrade or finding new ways to use their power. And in this case, mainly Weapon H, because his update is anything but subtle. And after that, it will be Dagger, Anti-Venom, and a kind of Cloak. So you know we gotta talk about it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so with us jumping back in with this team that has been assembled through circumstance more so than choice, it's here where we jump in just after everyone's been sucked through that time portal and taken back to the Hyborian age. But when they all land there, a number of them get separated, with either 2 or 3 of them showing up in a different location. But also with how this is done, we're shown a bit of a comparison to the history of the Hyborian age when this happens, which in a way I think was pretty important to be established at the beginning of this story, or at least with them arriving here. Because when they show up, we're told that there had been stories about a number of irregularities that occurred at this time, with there being mentions of the sun itself smashing through legions of the unjust, which was actually Dagger using her light force daggers and just defending herself with the others when they got here. But there's also been legends of a devil that fell from the stars whose claws and teeth made a mockery of the Zengaran's defenses, while its cursed touch brought healing to the sick and destitute. And in that case, of course, it's Flash Thompson, Agent Anti-Venom. And the reason why I like how this is done early on is because it lets us know that everything that's going to happen with these guys for the amount of time that they're here in the Hyborian age, that is already established in history. It's already happened. And unless some crazy time-traveling curveball comes around the corner, like you know who, then the events that take place here, they're safe from creating an alternate timeline. But we'll just have to stick around and see how that plays out. But my guess is that it stays contained, because that's usually how Conan's time traveling works out. Usually. And we'll see through the course of this that there's a few potential curveballs that we might get. But amongst the groups that have been separated, here we have Conan, Dagger, and Flash. But as they're making their stand, they don't hold up long to the Zengarans, because first off for Flash, when they start hitting him with the burning arrows, his symbiote can't take it and he's the first to go down. But then right after him, for Dagger, she attempts to keep them shielded with the light constructs, and it isn't long before the Zengarans break through, because for Tandy, it's not like her constructs are as strong as that of Sue Richards, because if they were, they would have been straight, because we've seen Sue hold up her shields momentarily against the Mad Celestial, against Galactus, and against a number of forces much stronger than a few guys with a battering ram. But in the case of Cloak, her light force is more effective with living objects, which is why these guys break through fairly quickly. And after she goes down, moments later they throw a net on Conan, to where then he's like, get this net off of me and face me. But they just like, nah bro, you got a bounty on your head, we finna get paid. But then right after this, we then find that Cloak and Daredevil, or Elektra Daredevil, the two of them had just landed in an arena. And as soon as they land here, before they can figure out where they are and what's going on, they're introduced as the Eldritch Sorcerer who has arrived with his vile demoness. And right after that, they're like, now they're gonna face our undefeated champion, the Devil Dinosaur. Which at this point, in a way, kind of shows us Devil Dinosaur after coming to the 616, with him previously being from Earth 78-411, which means prior to this, when Devil Dinosaur was back with Moon Boy, he had already went up against the Incredible Hulk. But with him coming here and being called the undefeated Devil Dinosaur, that's only because these guys in this arena, they only know what's happened here. Because as I recall in Devil Dinosaur issue 1, the Devil Dinosaur's very first encounter with the Incredible Hulk, it had left him taking an L. But even still then, there's a bit more to that story, because first and foremost, the Hulk was sent here by the Celestial Gamil, who didn't like the idea of Devil Dinosaur helping the native primitives, so he sent the Hulk to make a correction. But when the Celestial Devron had seen what his brother Gamil had done on his own, he had then sent in his own course correction by giving Devil Dinosaur a ferocious cosmic upgrade. But all of this was really just the result of two Celestials disagreeing on natural evolution. But nonetheless, at this point in time, after after Moon Boy and before Moon Girl. As we're shown, Devil Dinosaur was just wildin'. But in a clever way, we're also shown that when Devil Dinosaur is brought out to kill Elektra and Cloak, it's made clear rather quickly that Elektra could have just easily killed him. She can place her side between his scales, sever his optic nerve. She could end this in a number of ways, but because of what we've seen recently in Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run when Matt was in prison, and we covered some of this with our talks during King in Black when Elektra approached Matt for help. And he declined because he needed her to prove this time that she was done working for the darkness and that this wasn't her just saying what she needed to say to get him to do what she wanted him to do, because Matt was just done with her manipulation and lies. But of course, this is what initially led to her changing her ways and no longer killing and becoming a new Daredevil to gain Matt's trust. And it's here where we see that that's brought back. When we see Elektra find other means to stop Devil Dinosaur without killing him and just screwing up continuity, so she finds a way to take him down only for him to then break free, and then when he attacks again, Cloak then steps in and removes Devil Dinosaur from the arena. But even with them solving this issue, the locals are not happy about it and they end up capturing Elektra and Cloak as a result. But after this, we then go over to Deathlock, who had also been sucked into the time portal, which makes sense because he was closest to it. But when he arrived, he had popped up a little further out underwater. But of course, with him being relentless by design and programmed to erase threats from the time stream, he continues to press forward and make his pursuit towards Conan. But before he does, he searches for a nearby forge, which he happens to get directions to from some friendly locals who are more than willing to cooperate and give a murder machine from the future some simple directions, which again with this one is done with a very Terminator style fashion. But with Deathlock getting directions to the nearest munitions facility where he could find a forge, and it's here where he crafts a new gun. With him of course knowing the components inside and out, as well as the precise measurements for every piece that he had to remake from scratch. And with him doing this here in the Hyborian age, given the resources that he had, just imagine what else he could build given a bit more time. But then it's here in the halls of Cordova where we find Dane Whitman making a ever so graceful landing in the company of mercenaries and swashbucklers from all over. And then alongside of him, Clay then lands, not so gracefully, and immediately these mercenaries and the others, they see these two as a threat. But with them fighting off these guys, Dane asks Clay if he plans on Wolverining anytime soon to help them get out of here, but Clay's not able to change because he's having trouble restarting his Gamma Core since Deathlock had recently drained all of his Gamma energy. And this is one of those things that goes back to the whole situation with Weapon H, because back during Weapons of Mutant Destruction, when he was designed as a murder machine for all mutants, he was given adamantium nanites to accommodate his bones and his claws, which he could use at a normal size or his hulking size. But in addition, with Dr. Alba turning Clay into a Hulk, she had done this in a way to where he would be in control, rather than him just hulking out whenever he gets angry. And at the time when we had seen this happen, and even following throughout the Weapon H series, we'd seen Clay put this to use plenty of times. But in this case, we find him in quite a bit of a different situation, because with his Gamma Core being drained, he's trying to restart it and he's trying to Hulk out, but nothing's happening. And for that reason, for one, they gotta jump out the window just to get away from these guys, with Clay having a bit of performance issues at the moment. But also when this happens, this introduces the idea of Clay exploring his abilities, because when they jump out the window, Clay finally hulks out. But when he does, it's like he's Weapon Harpy. And when he explains this, it's like he tried another frequency and he turned into this. But really with this happening, it just opens the door to a whole gang of other questions as far as Clay's abilities. Because now we're introduced to the idea that Clay doesn't have to just turn into the Weapon H that we've seen this whole time. But instead, because he has control of his transformation, as well as the frequency of his transformation, and it's like now he can turn into practically any Hulk that he wants to. But I also gotta say, with this happening, like with us seeing this take place, by no means am I gonna jump off the deep end and say that this guy could just turn into the Titan Hulk if he just concentrated hard enough. Like, I don't even think Weapon H is close to that. But it does introduce a number of possibilities as far as where Clay fits in the modern Hulkscape that's been established over the last couple of years. And I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna be watching this series rather closely to see where that goes. But at this moment, Clay even says himself that he doesn't know exactly what this means, and he doesn't think that he's just a Hulk anymore, which in a way is a very cryptic statement. but we'll keep an eye on that and see where it goes. But after this, when we go back to the others, we find Conan and Dagger in the Zingaran dungeon, with Conan feeling a bit relieved because if they're locked up here, then it's possible that this place will keep Deathlock out and give him a second to figure out his next move. But little did they know, because Deathlock was en route. But of course Conan, he doesn't express this to Dagger, but instead he tells her that had she just minded her own business, that they all wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. And he doesn't stop there, because also he tells her that her man's with the big old cloak, or as Conan would say, her caped companion, like he's soft and he ain't gonna make it out here. And Conan is like, if her dude tried to follow them out here, the best he could hope for him was a quick death. And for Dagger, that right there, those is fighting words. But before they really get into it, a voice comes from the corner, and as it turns out, it's Flash Thompson. And initially for Dagger, she's a bit shocked and thrown off because she didn't know that he didn't have legs. But Flash lets her know right away the Zingarans, they didn't do this. And he fills her in that he had been this way since Iraq. But his symbiote, on the other hand, it's having a pretty rough time from both the time travel and the recent fight. And it's here where Dagger uses her power, which would usually drain people of their life force, and she uses it to restore Flash's symbiote and get him back stable for the time being. But while this is happening, a couple other prisoners get thrown in with him. And of course, those couple other prisoners are Cloak and Elektra. And when they get tossed in, Conan just looks at Cloak and he's like, yeah, like I said, soft. But when he says this, there's 3 dots on his forehead, which soon would be his head getting blown off his shoulders, but Dagger pushes him out the way. And it's here where we see that Deathlock has found them. And of course this takes us back to the all-out brawl, but this time for the most part it's just Conan, Flash, and Elektra, with Dagger at this point making her way to Cloak to make sure he's okay. But with Deathlock just going against the 3 of these guys, he lets off a shock blast which knocks them back, and then he makes his way for Cloak. But before he can get to him, he's blindsided and knocked back by Weapon H and Black Knight, with Black Knight kind of doing the Terminator line with him going up to Conan like, come with me if you want to see tomorrow. And it's like, okay, we get the reference. But again, from here it goes to all-out brawl time. But this matchup is cut short when Flash goes to Cloak telling him that he has to do something, and Cloak inadvertently pulls an ace out of his sleeve and he just unleashes Devil Dinosaur, who from there just wrecks this dungeon, allowing them to get their weapons and get up out of there, leaving Deathlock no other choice but to retreat himself. But it's here when they leave when Conan is just wondering why Elektra is in such good spirits, with Deathlock pursuing them relentlessly with power beyond what they have to fire back. And it's here in this moment where she lets Conan know that she's figured out a way for them to get back home. But aside from this, we also find that these guys have a huge issue coming around the corner, because the cult of Set, they've been made aware of Conan's return, and according to their prophecy, once the blood of the twice returned men is spilled, so shall the fullness of immortal Set be reborn and rule the world of men. And it's here where we see them summon Thulsa Doom, with the intention of using his blood along with Conan's in order to summon Set and bring in the new age of his rule, which now makes things a bit trickier for Conan, because he's dealt with Thulsa Doom before, but to see him do it now with also dealing with Deathlock, that's gonna be a new challenge for him. And if by chance these guys succeed, that right there will be your other potential curveball. But with him having the new Savage Avengers here to fight with him, I'm really curious to see how this pans out. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.